Don't chase anyone. Not their attention, not their approval, not their affection, not their respect. Most people spend years believing that happiness waits on the other side of someone else's decision. They convince themselves that if only one person would finally understand them, appreciate them, choose them, or stay with them, then peace would arrive at last. But the harder they pursue what constantly moves away from them, the more exhausted they become. Their confidence slowly dissolves into dependence, and before they notice, they are no longer living according to their own values. They are living according to someone else's reactions. This is one of the oldest traps in human history. It existed long before social media, before endless messages, before public approval became a number displayed beneath every photograph. The Roman Stoics watched emperors, generals, merchants, and ordinary citizens fall into exactly the same prison. They saw brilliant minds destroyed because they confused external validation with inner strength. They discovered something astonishing nearly 2,000 years ago. Freedom is never gained by making people stay. It is gained by becoming the kind of person who remains complete whether they stay or leave. That is not a motivational slogan. It is a discipline that transformed some of history's greatest minds into individuals who could not be manipulated by praise, rejection, or fear. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire under constant pressure, surrounded by people whose loyalty shifted with power and opportunity. Every day he faced betrayal, criticism, and uncertainty. Yet instead of begging for acceptance or trying to control every opinion around him, he returned to a single principle. The only thing truly under his command was his own character. Everything else belonged to fortune. This simple distinction became the foundation of extraordinary peace. While others exhausted themselves chasing influence over people they could never fully control, Marcus focused entirely on governing himself. Most suffering begins the moment we reverse this order. We neglect our own discipline while becoming obsessed with another person's choices. We replay conversations long after they end. We imagine perfect responses that would have changed someone's opinion. We search for hidden meanings behind silence. We measure our worth by the attention we receive. Day after day, our emotional state becomes dependent upon variables that were never ours to command. The Stoics recognized this pattern immediately because it violated their most fundamental teaching, the dichotomy of control. If something belongs to another person's thoughts, emotions, decisions, or actions, then it does not belong to you. To surrender your peace to what is not yours is to volunteer for endless disappointment. This truth is uncomfortable because the human mind craves certainty. It desperately wants guarantees that people will remain loyal, grateful, loving, and honest forever. But reality refuses such promises. Every relationship exists between two independent minds. Every friendship, partnership, and alliance contains uncertainty, because each person retains the freedom to choose differently tomorrow than they chose today. The Stoic does not deny this uncertainty. The Stoic accepts it completely. Acceptance removes fear because fear survives only where illusion remains. Consider how often people chase someone who has already shown them indifference. They interpret distance as mystery. They mistake inconsistency for value. They believe that enough effort can force affection into existence. Yet every attempt to convince another person to care often produces the opposite effect. Desperation has a strange way of making people abandon their own dignity. They stop expressing honest thoughts. They hide their principles. They reshape their personality into whatever they imagine will finally earn approval. Eventually they become strangers to themselves, all in pursuit of someone who was never theirs to control. Epictetus warned against exactly this mistake. He taught that when you attach your happiness to something outside your own moral purpose, you immediately become vulnerable to fear, anxiety, and manipulation. Whoever controls the object of your attachment begins to control your emotions. If another person's approval determines your peace, then they possess power over your inner life without ever asking for it. But if your peace depends upon your own integrity, then no rejection can truly impoverish you. This is why Stoic detachment is so often misunderstood. It is not coldness. It is not the refusal to love. It is not isolation from humanity. Detachment simply means loving without surrendering your freedom. It means caring deeply while remembering that every human being is temporary. It means appreciating people without demanding that they fulfill expectations they never promised to satisfy. Such love is quieter, stronger, and infinitely more stable because it is built upon reality instead of possession. The greatest paradox is that people who stop chasing often become more attractive, not because they are pretending to be unavailable, but because genuine independence possesses a silent power. A person who no longer begs for attention speaks with confidence. A person who does not fear rejection acts with honesty. A person who has learned to stand alone is impossible to manipulate through approval or criticism. Others sense this stability without fully understanding why it feels different. Seneca understood that noise often reveals insecurity, while silence reveals mastery. He advised that wisdom does not rush to announce itself. The strongest individual is rarely the loudest. There is immense strength in allowing your actions to speak while your ambitions remain protected. Every unnecessary explanation invites unnecessary judgment. Every public declaration of your plans exposes them to opinions that neither strengthen nor deserve them. The Stoic learns to move quietly, allowing discipline rather than applause to become the measure of progress. Imagine the energy reclaimed when you stop explaining yourself to everyone. Imagine waking each morning concerned only with becoming wiser, more patient, more disciplined, and more courageous than you were yesterday. Suddenly, the endless pursuit of validation begins to look like a distraction rather than a necessity. Your attention returns to the one place where transformation has always been possible, your own character. This is the hidden secret that so many overlook. Detachment is not the loss of love. It is the recovery of self-respect. It is the decision to stop negotiating your values in exchange for temporary acceptance. It is the courage to recognize that what truly belongs to you can never be taken by another person's opinion. The moment you understand this, your relationships begin to change because they are no longer built upon fear. They are built upon freedom. The Stoics believed that every obstacle carried within it the material for becoming stronger. They called this spirit amor fati, the love of fate. It was not enough to tolerate rejection, disappointment, or loss. They urged us to welcome these experiences as teachers. Every person who walks away from your life leaves behind a lesson that comfort could never provide. Every betrayal exposes where trust was placed without wisdom. Every failure uncovers weaknesses that success would have allowed to remain hidden. The person who resists these moments becomes bitter. The person who embraces them becomes unshakable. Think about how much of your life has been shaped by moments you never wanted. The conversation that ended a friendship, the opportunity that disappeared, the affection that was never returned. At the time, each event probably seemed like proof that life was working against you. Yet with distance, many of those painful moments revealed themselves as turning points. Had everything unfolded according to your desires, you might never have developed patience, resilience, or independence. What once felt like misfortune became preparation. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself repeatedly that nothing happening outside the mind has the power to damage the soul unless the mind agrees to be damaged. This idea demands enormous discipline because our first impulse is always to blame circumstances. We point to difficult people, unfair treatment, or unexpected setbacks as the source of our misery. The Stoics challenged that instinct. They argued that events are simply events. It is our judgment about them that creates suffering. Change the judgment, and the experience itself begins to change. This does not mean pretending that pain is pleasant. The Stoics never asked us to deny reality. They understood grief, disappointment, and loneliness because they lived through wars, exile, political conflict, disease, and personal tragedy. Their strength came not from escaping hardship, but from refusing to let hardship define their identity. They accepted emotion without surrendering reason. They allowed themselves to feel loss while refusing to become servants of despair. There is another form of detachment that modern life desperately needs. It is the courage to stop reacting to every opinion. We live in an age where criticism arrives instantly and often anonymously. A careless comment can occupy the mind for hours. Praise can become just as dangerous because once you depend on applause, you begin fearing its absence. The Stoic path rejects both extremes. Whether others admire you or condemn you, neither changes your character. Virtue is not increased by compliments, nor diminished by insults. Imagine the freedom of no longer needing to win every argument. Imagine hearing criticism without feeling compelled to defend yourself immediately. Silence, when chosen wisely, is not weakness, it is confidence. The person who truly knows their values does not need constant confirmation from strangers. They understand that truth remains true even when misunderstood. They recognize that not every accusation deserves a response, and not every misunderstanding requires correction. This is why strategic silence was so highly valued among the Stoics. They understood that words are precious. Every unnecessary reaction gives away emotional energy that could have been invested in meaningful action. While others become consumed by proving themselves, the Stoic quietly continues improving. They allow time and character to become their defense. Reputation rises and falls with public opinion, but character remains under personal control. Ask yourself a difficult question. How much of your daily stress comes from trying to influence things that were never yours to influence? How many hours are spent worrying about another person's thoughts instead of strengthening your own mind? Every minute devoted to chasing approval is a minute stolen from becoming the person you are capable of becoming. Every moment spent comparing your journey to someone else's is a moment in which your own progress stands still. The Stoic does not withdraw from the world. They participate fully, but they do so from a position of inner freedom. They love generously without clinging. They work diligently without becoming enslaved by results. They pursue excellence without craving recognition. They understand that success built upon external validation is fragile, while success built upon disciplined character cannot be taken away by changing circumstances. Perhaps the greatest reward of Stoic detachment is not that people begin treating you differently, although many will. The greatest reward is that you begin treating yourself differently. You stop abandoning your principles for temporary comfort. You stop measuring your worth through comparison. You stop negotiating your peace in exchange for acceptance. Instead, you cultivate a quiet confidence that grows stronger with every challenge overcome. One day you will notice that the people you once chased no longer occupy your thoughts. The opinions that once disturbed your sleep will lose their power. The fears that once controlled your decisions will seem strangely small, not because the world became easier, but because you became stronger. You will discover that real confidence is never loud. It does not demand attention. It simply stands firm, rooted in principles that cannot be shaken by changing fortunes. So do not chase anyone. Chase wisdom. Chase discipline. Chase integrity. Chase the version of yourself that remains calm in chaos, humble in success, patient in hardship, and fearless in uncertainty. When you master these things, something remarkable happens. Whether people arrive or depart, whether fortune smiles or turns away, your peace remains untouched because it was never placed in their hands to begin with. That is the quiet power of Stoic detachment. It is not the absence of feeling, but the mastery of it. It is the decision to govern yourself instead of trying to govern others, and in mastering yourself, you discover the one freedom that no person, no criticism, and no circumstance can ever take away.